Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm excited to bring you the 23rd episode of Mixed Media, The Paper Wishes Way. Today, we're going to create cards with one of my favorite crafting tools, a Gelli plate. This is a flexible 3-inch by 5-inch plate that you can use to create your own monoprinted backgrounds like you see here. And while you can use lots of different mediums with your Gelli plate, acrylic paints are some of the easiest to use. So we're going to be working with the Dylusions paints from Ranger. Now I have 3 card projects to share with you today. We'll explore simple techniques with a brayer, splatter brush, stencils, and stamps. You'll find yourself making lots and lots of prints, and because these are monoprints, each one will be unique. I'm really glad you're joining us today, so come play with us. Let's start with our Gelli plate. Now you can see that mine has been well loved and well used. I've had this for years and they last you ages. Now mine is a little bit stained from all of the various mediums I've experimented with over the years, but it's not going to affect my prints. So you can just pop yours right out of the clamshell packaging and put it onto a craft sheet or something that will protect your work surface. I've got mine on a piece of scrap paper just so I can move it a bit more easily. So now all I need to do is apply some paint, and for that I'm going to use my brayer. The 2 paints that I'm working with are Strawberry Daiquiri and a little bit of Lemon Drop. So I often put the paint onto my craft mat, and then I can roll the brayer through and onto my Gelli plate. You can also just put the paint right onto your Gelli plate too. Just depends on what you like. I find that a little bit goes a long way, and since you want a smooth, light layer, this is a really good way to go. So I'm going to pick up some of that lemon drop and then just brayer it right onto the Gelli plate. And I'll pick up some of that strawberry daiquiri and add a little bit on here too. So I could make a print from this right now, and all I would need to do is just put a piece of paper right on top. But I want to also use my spatter brush, and I'm going to get a little bit of Balmy Night paint. Put a little bit here. I've got my Distress splatter brush, and I'll just pick up some of the paint from that and then splatter it onto my Gelli plate. Okay, and kind of clean off my hands a little bit in between, and then I can make my print. So I'm just going to grab a piece of white cardstock and just place this right on here. Now you can use any cardstock, tissue paper, book paper, pattern paper, manila tags. You can also use regular printer paper, which is a fun way to create lots of prints really inexpensively. The one paper you don't want to use is glossy cardstock or photo paper because it tends to stick to your plate. Okay, now that I've pulled this off, I've got a really cool pattern design on here, which is a lot of fun. Now, some other looks that you can get from the same technique. Here's another one, and here's one that I did a little bit earlier too. So lots and lots of different monoprinted designs that you can create. Monoprinting because, of course, you're only ever going to be able to get one that will look just the way it comes out, and you will have a unique look every single time. Now, I can go ahead and clean my plate right now if I want to, but I think I want to do another quick pull. So you saw how easy it was to add the splatter. Let's do something different with that splatter brush. So I'm just going to pick up some more paint. You'll notice I'm not cleaning my plate in between. You can get some really beautiful and different effects when you just let the layers of paint build up. So I've just brayered on my leftover paint here. And then I'm going to take that brush and I'm just going to drag this across here lightly. And then grab another piece of cardstock or paper, press that down, smooth it down, and then lift this off. And you want to lift it off pretty quickly. And there you've got not only the leftover spatters from the last pull, but also that cool texture from the splatter brush. Super easy to do, and you can create lots of different interesting patterns with tools like your splatter brush. Okay, so one more technique is with the brayer. Now I'm just going to give this a quick clean with a baby wipe. And this is pretty much all I do in between my pulls when I want to Just do a quick cleanup. Baby wipe is going to work perfectly. And then I'm going to set aside my brush and I'm going to add more paint here. So let's see, I'm going to do again the strawberry daiquiri and this time a little bit of desert sand. So again, kind of clean this up here from my craft sheet. I love how easy it is to get that cleaned off. And I'll add a little bit, but this time I'm going to do this right onto my plate. So I'm going to start with some strawberry daiquiri in each corner here. Grab that brayer, and I'm just going to brayer this across, like so. So I'm creating some stripes. Then quickly clean off my brayer, just get that excess paint off of there. And take a little bit of this desert sand and pop that color on there as well. And then brayer this right across. And in doing this, I'm kind of blending some of the edges on here together. Okay, now let me grab another piece of cardstock. You want to have a good stash of cardstock or paper on hand when you're doing this because you can really get going. And then pull this off gently. And there I've got a really cool two-tone effect on here. Really fun, really easy to do. And I think you can see it starts to get a little bit addicting almost. So let me show you a card project that I've done. Hang on here. There we go. And this is using that exact same technique and the same colors as well. So I've got the strawberry daiquiri and desert sand. On top of this, I have an embellishment from the Clocks and Gears chipboard. Now you can paint these, but I thought it looked really cool as is. So I've just popped that down using the sticky specs, by the way. That's a really good tool to have on hand as well. And it makes it a lot easier to glue down some intricate details like this. I've got a simple dazzle greeting down here at the bottom. And you can see that I've also spattered some strawberry daiquiri onto the card base as well. Now for the inside, I have some more spattering and some gears. And the gears in this case, I've painted with desert sand just to give them a little bit more definition from the white of the card inside. Okay, so now that you've seen some easy basics, let's see how to use stamps with your Gelli plate. So with this card, we have both the positive and negative print of this wood grain stamp. So this area here is the mono print, and this area has been simply stamped with paint. So it's a super way to create a background that is bigger than your 3" by 5" Gelli plate. Okay, so for this technique, I'm going to be using my Gelli plate as a stamp. So I have this up on an acrylic block. And of course, I'm going to need my brayer and a couple of paint colors. So I'm going to be working with the desert sand, and I have lemon drop, and then I'm going to work in a little bit of that balmy night too. Okay, so let's start with some of our lighter colors. Just put a bit here on my craft mat. There's some of the lemon drop and just a little bit of that balmy night. And then I'm going to pick up 2 of those light colors and just brayer this right onto my Gelli plate. And then pick up some of that beautiful blue. Let's make sure my brayer is rolling. There we go. And make sure that I've got a nice even amount of paint on here. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, just wipe this up quite quickly. I'm going to grab my wood grain stamp and simply pop it right down onto my Gelli plate. Now, if you have an acrylic block, you can use it with this, but you can also use it just with your hands. That works fine too. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a piece of white cardstock, and I'm just going to lift this up. Now you may be able to see that there's a pattern on there. You can definitely see that I've got some paint on here. So let me pop this down. Of course, I don't want any of that to go to waste, any of that beautiful paint. So I'll pop that down. You can kind of lift and peek and see if you've got enough contact on there, and then simply roll that right off and you've got a really pretty painted design. Now, I'm going to take my jelly plate and pop this right down here to get my other side. And there we go. So I've got my positive and my negative print on here. And when this dries, I'm ready to go and use it as the background on my card or whatever project I'm working on. Now I wanted to show you a couple of other examples with this. So here's one that I did using the hot off the press chicken wire design. So you can see you can actually use some really fine detailed designs on here as well. Here's another bigger piece that I did, and this one is using a stencil design, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Here's the stamped area. Now this is with the all over script, and I will just point out that if you use it on the jelly plate with that script, the script will be reading in reverse. So maybe not such a big deal with a really intricate script like this one here, but you may want to keep that in mind if you've got some bolder alphabets or other fonts and sentiments too, that will be reading backwards. Okay, so let's take another look at the wood grain card again. And you can see that I really just accented this very simply with a dazzle greeting on some nested ovals. And I've got some chipboard accents on here. These here are from the Foliage for Your Flowers set. And I painted them with Lemon Drop and Balmy Night. And the two of those together, of course, yellow and blue, make a really pretty green. The flowers here are from 49 and Market. Now for the card inside, I just rolled my brayer, my dirty painty brayer. I just rolled that right across the inside of my card and then added another layered oval die cut and a few more of those beautiful painted leaves. Now I have one more card project that I want to share with you, and this is using the stencils as I alluded to before. So we're going to take a look again at how to create a background that is bigger than a 3" by 5" jelly plate, but we're going to focus here on using a stencil to create a really pretty pattern. So this slimline card has several different prints, which I've just placed together like the last card, and you can see I've got the splatter brush here, I've got the wood grain stamping on here, and then of course some of this really fun stencil design. So let's take a look at how to do this. Okay, so let's get to work using our stencil. Now this is the all over swirls design, and this is the one that I'm going to be using. So I've got that ready to go. I've also got my jelly plate. So let's put down a couple of different colors. I'm going to be working again with that lemon drop, which I really love, and pairing that with some tropical sangria. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of my lemon drop down on my craft sheet, add a bit of the sangria here right next to it, and then we can brayer this out. Again, just start with a lighter color and add some of this on here, and then pick up some of that bright, beautiful sangria and add a little bit more on here. Now you can go back and forth, you can blend them completely, you can blend them before you put them onto your jelly plate. You get so many different options. Okay, so now I can take my stencil and I'm just going to pop this down right on top, right into that wet paint. And I'm going to grab a piece of inexpensive copier paper and pop this down on top. Now this is going to give me an interesting print, but it's also going to remove some of the paint from the jelly plate. So I'm going to smooth this down and then just lift this right up. And I've got an interesting pattern on here. I'm going to save that for some other project. And then I'm just going to take a dry cloth or tissue and kind of blot away any excess paint from any of the other areas here. So I'm leaving the stencil on the jelly plate, and it's staying where it's supposed to, kind of stuck into some of that paint. And then I'm going to gently lift this up, and you can see I've got my pattern on here. Grab a piece of cardstock and then just pop this down. And again, smooth Make sure I've got contact on there, and then just gently lift this off. And there I have my multicolored patterned swirl design. Really, really pretty and really easy to do. Okay, so I'm going to move my jelly plate out of the way and again pick up some of this color here. And let's take another look at that card project. Actually, let me show you a couple of other prints that I've made before we go back to that other card project. So you can see here's some more with the stencil, same stencil, using the Balmy Night and some of the desert sand. With this design here, again, another slimline card. You can see I've got the stencil here. I've got some of the wood grain here, a little bit of chicken wire pattern left over here, and then some of our simple brayering and splattering here. So when I'm doing the slimline cards, I just work right on top of the card itself. Really easy to do. Here's another one that I haven't quite finished yet, but I thought, ooh, this is an interesting pattern too, and a really fun combination of that wood grain and the stenciling here. Okay, so let's go back to our card project. I think you can start to see how it gets a little bit addicting once you get going pulling these prints. It's just so much fun. Okay, so we have a slimline card with a variety of patterns, and I've used the Zen Leaves Dazzles for the card focal, and I just adhered them to pink and white cardstock, did some fussy cutting around there, and added them onto the card front. Now for the card inside, I have another piece of brayered paper and some more dazzles on here. So one question you might have is about cleaning up with your jelly plate. Now when I'm all done for the day, I just take the jelly plate to the sink and wash it with mild soap and water and then pat it dry. And you can store your plate in the clamshell package, and I always keep the info sheet in there as well because it does have some handy tips and information. Okay, so with this last card, I think we can see just how much fun we can have with the jelly plate and acrylic paints. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. We're really so glad that you're here with us, and I can't wait to see what you create. Do be sure to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. Each item can be purchased separately, and you can see them below. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.